Bullies target single mom's farm, don't know she's ex-military sniper. An inspiring story by Heartfelt Tales. The rifle scope's crosshairs centered perfectly on the scarecrow's head, 300 yards away. Sarah Mitchell's breathing slowed to a whisper as her finger gently caressed the trigger. The morning mist clung to her small farm like a shroud, and for a moment, she wasn't a struggling single mother in rural Montana. She was back in the mountains of Afghanistan, where a steady hand and keen eye meant the difference between her squad coming home alive or in body bags. The scarecrow's head exploded in a shower of straw, and Sarah lowered her weapon with the same quiet precision that had once made her the most feared sniper in the 75th Ranger Regiment. She had no idea that in less than 24 hours, those skills would save everything she held dear. If you're enjoying this story of courage and determination, please show your support for Heartfelt Tales by hitting that like button and leaving a comment below. Your engagement means the world to us. Sarah wiped the sweat from her brow and slung the rifle over her shoulder. Target practice had become her morning ritual, a way to quiet the demons that still visited her dreams. The farm stretched out before her, 40 acres of struggling crops and a modest 2-story house that had seen better days. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Hers and her 8-year-old daughter Emma's. A sanctuary built from the ashes of a life she'd left behind when she traded her combat boots for work boots and her military service for motherhood. The crunch of gravel on her driveway interrupted her thoughts. Sarah's posture shifted almost imperceptibly, muscle memory from years of training taking over as she assessed the approaching threat. A black pickup truck rolled up her drive, followed by 2 more vehicles, a beat-up sedan and another truck, this one red and rusted around the edges. 6 men emerged, their swagger immediately setting Sarah's teeth on edge. The leader was a mountain of a man with arms like tree trunks and a beer gut that strained against his flannel shirt. Marcus Webb, the local troublemaker who owned the largest ranch in the county and seemed to believe that gave him dominion over everyone else's land. Sarah had heard the whispers in town about Webb's business practices, how smaller farms mysteriously faced problems until their owners were forced to sell, usually to Webb at prices well below market value. "Morning, Sarah," Webb called out, his voice carrying false friendliness that made Sarah's skin crawl. "Hope you don't mind us dropping by unannounced." Sarah kept her rifle casually positioned but ready. "What can I do for you, Marcus?" Webb's eyes swept over her property with obvious disdain. "Well, it's more about what we can do for each other. See, I've been looking to expand my operation, and your little farm here sits right in the middle of some prime grazing land I've got my eye on." "It's not for sale," Sarah replied quietly, her voice steady despite the adrenaline beginning to course through her veins. Webb chuckled, and his men shifted closer. Sarah noted their positions automatically, 2 flanking left, 1 right, Webb and 2 others straight ahead. Classic intimidation formation, though they probably didn't realize they were using it. "Now, don't be hasty," Webb continued. "I'm offering you a fair price. More than fair, considering the challenges you've been having. Crops not doing so well, I hear. And raising a little girl all alone out here, well, that can't be easy. Dangerous, even." The implied threat hung in the air like morning fog. Sarah felt something cold and familiar settle in her chest, the same icy calm that used to descend during combat. Her voice remained level, but there was steel beneath it now. "My daughter and I are doing just fine, thank you. Now, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave my property." Webb's false smile disappeared. "See, that's where you're wrong. You're not doing fine. In fact, I'd say you're about to have some serious problems. Equipment breaking down, crops failing, maybe some accidents. Terrible shame when these things happen to folks who don't want to be neighborly." One of Webb's men, a thin scarecrow of a person with dead eyes, stepped forward. "Pretty isolated out here. Long way to the nearest neighbor. Long way for help to come if someone was in trouble." Sarah's grip on her rifle tightened almost imperceptibly. In her peripheral vision, she saw movement at the house, Emma's face appeared briefly in an upstairs window before quickly disappearing. Good girl. They'd practiced this scenario, though Sarah had prayed they'd never need to use it. I think you gentlemen should leave, Sarah said, her voice carrying a new edge that made the smart ones in the group shift uncomfortably. Webb stepped closer, close enough that Sarah could smell stale beer and tobacco on his breath. Or what? You'll call the sheriff? Johnson's in my pocket, sweetheart. You'll report equipment damage, maybe some livestock going missing, and he'll write it up as accidents. Bad luck. These things happen to stubborn people. Last warning, Sarah said quietly. Webb laughed, a harsh sound that echoed across the farm. You know what your problem is? You think you're tougher than you are because you wave that hunting rifle around. But you're just a scared little girl playing dress-up on a farm you can't handle. He reached out to grab Sarah's shoulder, and everything changed. Sarah's movements were fluid, precise, and devastatingly effective. She sidestepped Webb's grasp while simultaneously bringing the rifle stock up in a short, sharp arc that connected with his solar plexus. As Webb doubled over, gasping, Sarah spun the weapon and had it aimed at the center of his chest before any of his men could react. Gentlemen, Sarah said, her voice now carrying the authority of someone accustomed to life and death command decisions, I served 3 tours in Afghanistan as a Green Beret sniper. My confirmed kill count is classified, but let's just say it's higher than the number of brain cells you all possess combined. The men froze. Webb straightened slowly, his face red with exertion and embarrassment. The rifle you see pointed at you is a Remington 700 in .308 caliber. At this distance, I could put a bullet through a dime. At 300 yards, I could part your hair. At 600 yards, I could still hit whatever I aimed at. Sarah's voice was calm, conversational, but carried absolute conviction. Now, you came here to intimidate a single mother. What you found was a United States Army veteran who took an oath to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. One of Webb's men started to reach into his jacket, and Sarah shifted her aim to him without even looking. I wouldn't. Unless that's a white flag you're reaching for. The man's hand froze, then slowly moved away from his jacket. Here's what's going to happen, Sarah continued. You're going to get in your vehicles, drive off my property, and never come back. If I see any of you near my farm, near my daughter, or if I experience any mysterious equipment failures or livestock problems, I will consider it an act of aggression against my family. Webb found his voice, though it came out as more of a croak. You can't threaten us. We'll call the sheriff. Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Go ahead. Tell Sheriff Johnson that you came to intimidate a war veteran and her child, and she responded by exercising her Second Amendment rights on her own property. I'm sure that conversation will go well for you. She paused, letting that sink in. Oh, and Marcus? I know about the Henderson farm last year. And the Rodriguez place 2 years before that. Funny how their problems started right after you made them similar visits. I also know you've been selling cattle futures on herds you don't own yet, counting on acquiring this land to expand your operation. If I were you, I'd start looking for property that's actually for sale. Webb's face went white. How could she possibly know about his financial arrangements? The truth was, Sarah had spent months quietly investigating Webb after hearing rumors in town. Her military training had included intelligence gathering, and old habits died hard. She'd learned that Webb was leveraging future land acquisitions for current loans, creating a house of cards that would collapse if he couldn't deliver on his expansion plans. Now, Sarah said, her aim never wavering, I believe I asked you to leave. Webb's men were already backing toward their vehicles. The big man himself stood his ground for another moment, trying to salvage some dignity, but eventually he too began to retreat. This isn't over, he called out as he reached his truck. Yes, it is, Sarah replied. And Marcus? If anything happens to my family or my farm, the investigation will start with you. I may be retired, but I still have friends in very official places who take threats against veterans seriously." The vehicles roared to life and spun out of the driveway, kicking up gravel and dust. Sarah maintained her position until they were completely out of sight, then lowered her rifle and released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Mom?" Sarah turned to see Emma standing in the doorway, her 8-year-old face a mixture of worry and awe. "Is everything okay? Those men seemed mean." Sarah walked over and knelt down to her daughter's level, setting the rifle aside. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just some confused neighbors who needed directions back to their own property." Emma studied her mother's face with the perceptiveness of a child who'd learned to read the adults around her for signs of danger or safety. "You were different. You sounded like a soldier." Sarah felt her heart clench. She'd tried so hard to leave that part of herself buried, to be just a mom, just a farmer. But the truth was, that soldier would always be part of her, ready to surface when her family was threatened. "Sometimes, baby, we have to be different versions of ourselves depending on what the situation needs. But no matter what, I will always protect you." Emma nodded solemnly, then surprised Sarah by throwing her arms around her neck. "I'm glad you're strong, Mom. I'm glad you know how to keep us safe." Over the following weeks, Sarah remained vigilant, but Webb and his men never returned. She heard through the town grapevine that Webb's financial empire had indeed collapsed when his lenders discovered his practice of mortgaging future acquisitions. The man who had terrorized small farmers found himself filing for bankruptcy, his ranch sold to pay off debts. More importantly, word spread through the community about what had happened. Not the intimidation attempt, that story somehow never made it to Sheriff Johnson's ears, but rather the tale of the quiet single mother who'd turned out to be a decorated combat veteran. The whispered stories grew in the telling, as such stories do, but the core truth remained: Sarah Mitchell was not someone to be trifled with. The unexpected result was a strengthening of community bonds around Sarah and Emma. Neighbors who had been merely polite became friends. Other veterans in the area, recognizing a kindred spirit, began stopping by to help with farm work and share stories. Emma, who had been shy at school, found herself with new confidence and new friends whose parents respected her mother's service. One evening, as Sarah and Emma sat on their porch watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold, Emma asked, "Mom, why didn't you ever tell me you were a soldier?" Sarah considered the question carefully. "I wanted you to know me as your mom first. That's the most important job I've ever had. But being a soldier taught me things about protecting what matters most, about standing up to bullies, about not backing down when something is right. Will you teach me?" Emma asked. "Teach you what?" "To be strong. To not be afraid of bullies." Sarah smiled, pulling her daughter closer. "You're already learning, sweetheart. Strength isn't about weapons or fighting. It's about knowing what's important to you and being willing to defend it. It's about helping others and standing up for what's right, even when it's scary." As the stars began to appear in the Montana sky, Sarah reflected on the events that had brought them to this moment. She'd left the military to escape violence, to build a peaceful life for her daughter. But peace, she'd learned, wasn't the absence of conflict. It was the presence of the will and ability to defend what mattered. The farm was thriving now, helped by the network of support that had grown around them. Emma was confident and happy, secure in the knowledge that her mother would always protect her. And Sarah had found a way to honor both sides of herself, the warrior and the mother, the protector and the nurturer. Sometimes, she still practiced her marksmanship at dawn, the scarecrow target serving as both training tool and reminder. Not because she expected trouble, but because readiness was a habit that had served her well. The rifle represented not aggression, but preparedness. Not violence, but the capacity to protect. As they headed inside for the evening, Emma turned to her mother one more time. "Mom, I'm proud of you. For being a soldier and for being my mom." Sarah's heart swelled with emotion. "And I'm proud of you for being brave, for asking questions, and for understanding that sometimes being strong means being gentle, and sometimes it means being firm. The farm settled into peaceful quiet as mother and daughter prepared for bed, secure in their home and in each other. Outside, the Montana wind whispered through the fields, carrying with it the promise of another peaceful day. But if trouble ever came to their door again, it would find them ready. In her bedtime prayers that night, Emma thanked God for her mom's strength and for their safe home. Sarah, listening from the doorway, added her own silent gratitude, for second chances, for the chance to use her skills to protect rather than destroy, and for the knowledge that the best battles are the ones fought not for conquest, but for love. The farm would continue to prosper, becoming a symbol in the community of what could be accomplished with determination, skill, and the courage to stand up to those who would prey on the vulnerable. And Emma would grow up knowing that her mother was not just loving and gentle, but also fearless and strong, a combination that would serve as her model for navigating her own challenges in the years to come. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey of courage, determination, and the strength found in protecting what matters most. If this story moved you, please show your support for Heartfelt Tales by hitting that like button. It helps us reach more people with these inspiring stories. Share this video with someone who might need to hear this message of resilience and strength. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What did this story mean to you? Have you ever had to find unexpected strength in challenging situations? Your comments and engagement help build our community of storytelling. Don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest stories of hope, courage, and the incredible strength of the human spirit. We publish new inspiring stories every week, each one crafted to remind you that even in our darkest moments, we possess the power to overcome, to protect what we love, and to emerge stronger than before. Until our next story, remember, true strength isn't measured by what we can destroy, but by what we choose to protect and build. Thank you for being part of the Heartfelt Tales family.